For the past couple of months, I've been slowly chipping away at making this super fast-paced game where you basically just run around as a car tire and you beat up the military and cars. Yeah, that's the whole premise. And in this gameplay, I'm just running around the main level and just annihilating the military. And I'm having a lot of fun making it, so I just wanted to show it off. So this basically started when I was playing Deer Simulator, and in that game, you do something very similar where you basically just run around as a deer and just annihilate the city and beat up animals and become this insanely powerful deer that can just run over anything it comes across. And I really wanted to make a game where you get a similar feeling while playing it, so I decided to take something that I love, which is cars, and use that to make a super fast-paced arcade-style wave survival game where you have to survive onslaughts of countless wacky vehicles, like these fucking goofy flying tanks, for example. So yeah, I guess I'll just start at the beginning, which for me usually starts in Blender, because I really like having a cool player model to look at. So yeah, I modeled this tire, I gave it some super simple materials, and added it to Unity, and I used it to start making the player controller. Now, I knew from the start that I wanted to make this game super fast-paced because I personally love movement games and I've always wanted to make one, so why not combine the ridiculousness of Goat Simulator and Deer Simulator with super fast and fluid mechanics? So yeah, that's what I did. I gave the player tons and tons of speed, and I gave them like some super simple animations to make it look nicer. And then I added one of the main mechanics for fighting, which was this directional dash that would essentially launch you in whatever direction you were looking. This dash would basically bring you up to max speed and would let you destroy enemies. Speaking of, I originally wanted the player to have to like build up speed and crash into enemies with the speed that they build up to kill them. But honestly, that wasn't super fun because your DPS was always going to be limited by your speed and like your speed cap, which is of course was like set by the game. And that meant that you were like super limited in how much destruction you could cause. And I really didn't want to be like constraining the player and forcing them into this annoying playstyle. But on the bright side, I noticed that dashing into things was actually pretty cool, so I decided to focus on that instead because it was genuinely more fun. I started by giving the player 2 dashes to allow for more decision making and fluid on the fly like combat, and this also helps. It basically let them correct for mistakes, which quite frankly the original system did not allow, because if you missed, you had to like turn around and your speed gets reset back to 0. So like it's not like you're correcting for a mistake. You're kind of starting an entire attack again. Unfortunately, the speed-based approach was just very lacking in that decision making and that mistake correction. So yeah, I switched to a dash system because it was honestly more fun. I also made logic for granting dash charges back if the player successfully hit an enemy. What this would do is it would basically let you chain kills together if your aim was good enough, which I honestly like a lot better than the one-dimensional build up speed and crash into enemies game loop. It was much more skillful. Chaining dashes together was much more fun than just getting that one kill by moving quickly and then having your speed reset to 0 because you had to turn around and, you know, launch yourself at another enemy. And I also made it so that the dash will recharge over time, so even if you miss both, you can still regain them just by like chilling out for a second and then jumping right back into the combat to start chaining kills again. However, this sort of created a new problem where it was super hard to properly aim and get kills because you were just moving so damn fast. Like, I literally made this player controller and I can't even line up dashes properly to get those super satisfying chain kills because you're just moving so damn fast. So I added this slow motion mechanic to basically help you line up the kills. And I actually think it worked out because it's pretty easy to get big chain kills and you just completely wrecked vehicles. And honestly, looking back on it now, the original control scheme felt pretty bad compared to what's in the game now. Now the player has much more control when they're like in the air also. Their ability to stop is a lot better. Their braking is a lot better. And they also have a double jump now, which really helps for like mid-air rerouting because, yeah, if you've noticed while watching the gameplay, you actually spend a lot of time in the air because, again, you have higher acceleration when airborne, so the movement just feels better if you stay off the ground and you're more incentivized to be in the air because you're faster. And staying in the air is fully possible now, and I'd say easy because your dash charges are very easy to replenish, and also because you have 2 of them now, if you make a mistake, you can still stay in the air. And you can also, like, save your double jump to make sure that you always have a way to reset your vertical momentum just in case you start falling. So yeah, really happy with how the player movement turned out. It originally was awful, but you know, I worked on it and it got better. Also, I gave the player like a super simple vault mechanic that helps them get over small bumps and lumps and bumps and humps because the stupid freaking sidewalks that I made were ruining the fluid movement. So yeah, I had to make a fix for that real quick. After getting the mechanics of the actual player controller down, I wanted to juice it up and make it feel a little nicer, so I added some super simple speed lines on the edge of the screen that slowly slide in, depending on how fast you're moving. I also made the camera shake slightly if you were moving fast, and made the camera field of view increase as you got faster and faster, and these are also both based on how quickly you're moving. And this FOV change also applies to the dash, which stacks with the speed-based FOV. So if you're moving quickly and you dash, it just makes you feel like you're going super speed. Once I got the player movement down, I needed a better place to actually like mess around with my inspector settings. So I made a pretty rough block out of the map just using a bunch of gray boxes so I could start working on these guys. So these guys are just simple test enemies that chase the player. They don't actually hurt you yet. They just kind of chase you and try to ram into you. They use Unity's wheel colliders, so they're able to really easily climb over these small obstacles like the sidewalks, and also means that they're entirely physics-based, which there's pros and cons, of course, to that, but I found that having it be entirely physics-based leads to funnier moments, like these cars launching themselves off the cliffs. Here I spawned like 1,000 of them and just let them chase me. They tended to clump into these like huge areas, and that was because they weren't actually able to follow me or target me while I was airborne. So they'd basically just hunt down my last position when I was on the ground, or they just flip over and not be able to move. So yeah, it's good. It's they're a little buggy, but it's good to know that they at least they aren't super laggy. Now these guys are cool, but I should probably make something more interesting than just these stupid drunk drivers that just chase you around or whatever the hell you want to call them. So I jumped into Blender and modeled this simple armored car. I gave it some materials and dropped it into Unity, and it uses the same logic that the red guys use. They're just a lot slower. And bam, we have an extremely simple enemy. Now, the gun on top was also pretty interesting. I wanted to make it not like perfectly track the player, so I used TF2 Sentry as like inspiration. And I also gave the guns a lot of spread because my philosophy with this game is more enemies that aren't powerful over less enemies that are powerful. That way, the player gets to interact with the dashing mechanic more because there's more enemies to dash into, and there's more enemies to get their dash resets off. And it's just you're able to cause more carnage when there's more enemies. There's more explosions. It's just more fun. So yeah, these guys are pretty weak. Their aim is absolutely horrible, but it's fodder, and every game needs fodder, I guess, to interact with the main mechanic, which in this case is resetting dashes. Now, these physics-based enemies tend to get stuck a lot. That's one of the cons of being physics-based. So I gave them a couple systems to kind of help out with that. If they detect a wall in front of them, they'll back up for a bit and try to go around it. If they detect that they haven't been moving for a while, they'll just kind of nudge themselves free. Jesus Christ. It's like a little explosion underneath their feet that they just like push themselves upwards with. I also made it so that if they're airborne for too long, they self-destruct because, yeah, there's no reason for them to be running logic if they're just, like, being blasted over the horizon. I had some pretty funny moments while I was making this thing. Like, here, I accidentally made it do whatever the fuck it's doing here. I think what ended up happening was the wheels were spinning at, like, 1,000,000 miles an hour, and, like, the weight was set to none, and the gravity was super high, so it just kept bouncing around like a fish out of water. I don't even know. And I gave him the weak spot, which is the turret. If you break the turret with a dash, it just the whole car just dies. In the future, I'm going to make it so that when you're in slow motion, the turret glows red, because currently there's no way to tell like where to hit on a given enemy. There's no way to know where the weak spots are. But yeah, other than the gun firing sound being from Fortnite, I'm really happy with this. It's nothing crazy, but it serves as good dash reset fuel. But yeah, I guess one enemy down, many more to go, right? I really wanted to make the next enemy a little more ridiculous, so I was inspired by this really wacky YouTube video I found with like a flying tank in it, so I decided to recreate this in the game because I feel like it fits. So I hopped into Blender again, modeled a tank based on like an M1 Abrams, and slapped some simple follow AI onto it. This enemy isn't going to be physics-based simply because it has two different phases, and those phases, they kind of differ in their movement and AI, so I wanted to keep it simple and use Unity's default AI navigation. But yeah, when it's in its grounded phase, I made it so that the bottom, or like the treads, face where the tank is trying to go. I made it so that like the main turret rotates to face the player while also not pitching up and down, but I made the barrel pitch up and down to face the player. That way there's like two rotations happening. I also added the same machine gun that was on the armored car on top of the main gun, so that way the tank is like two ways to fire at you when it's in its grounded state. And when you destroy the machine gun, the tank will spin up into the air and fly into the air like a helicopter. And a turret from its belly will appear, and it'll use that to fight instead of its main gun. That belly gun is the weak spot, and when you destroy it, the tank dies. And so after that, I got some placeholder sounds from World of Tanks and some sounds from this cool app that I use, and I add them to the tank to give it some more life, and I'm honestly really happy with the way it turned out. It looks as ridiculous as I thought it would in my head, and that's exactly what I'm going for in this game, so yeah, really happy with this. For some fucking reason, the tank was so buggy when I was making it. Like here, it just launched me into the air for no reason at all. Also, when I was trying to make it shoot, this happened. Also, this is super random, but at some point I added these like stupid pedestrian cars that just follow paths around the map. I made it so they stop whenever they see another car in front of them to avoid traffic jams. I don't really remember when I made this. It was like months ago, so I don't really know where to put it in the video. So yeah, it's going here. Okay, yeah, back to the enemies. So currently there's no way for the player to take any damage from the enemies, so I got to work on making a health system. I made a bunch of health bar sprites, and like heart sprites and bandage sprites, and I got to work coding in the health system, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Honestly, it wasn't as fun making the health system as it was making the tank, but it's like one of those things that no one really cares about, even if it's done well, so I tried not to focus too much on it. Just wanted to get it in the game so you actually have an idea of how you're performing. But it immediately became apparent that the player had no way of healing. So I added some like regeneration when you're out of combat. But if I'm being honest, I don't really like this because it incentivizes like a get in, get out tactic where you fight a bit and then you leave when you're low health, which isn't really what I'm going for. In a lot of these like fast-paced combat games, fighting is actually what gives you your health back. Like in Doom Eternal, it's the glory kills. So I added this like ambulance enemy that heals you when you destroy it. It uses pretty similar logic to the armored car, but instead of guns, it alternates between firing red and blue lasers in these short bursts. Under the hood, it's the exact same, but I wanted to make it a bit more unique. And I also wanted this end to be like fairly easy to kill. So the weak spot is literally just its entire front end, like the whole hood and like windshield is the entire hurt box. So it's absolutely gigantic. It's very hard to miss. So yeah, really good, easy source of health. Anyways, I want to do some VFX now, and these explosions that are spawning when the enemies die are absolute ass. So I bought an explosion pack to upgrade them, and I was really hoping that this would be drag and drop, but unfortunately it wasn't. It took a good amount of time and work to get them looking and sounding the way they do. I just made them spawn in when enemies die, and yeah, they look so freaking cool. I'm so happy with this, even though it took way too long to set up. And finally, I was low-key feeling like there wasn't enough movement in the game, so I added even more. There's now a diagonal slam movement ability in the game that's on the cooldown that just basically one-shots anything that you slam into. This ability is honestly so fun to use, and I've spent way too much time just like jumping around the main level, slamming the ground for no reason at all, which is honestly a good sign. I mean, like think about it. If I find the movement fun when there aren't even any enemies to use the movement on, like that's got to be a good sign, right? Like I know I made the game, so I'm incentivized to say like, oh, it's so fun, but like I genuinely am having fun just like jumping around and slamming the ground for no reason and just dashing through the air. So yeah, I'm hoping that means that the movement's fun. Obviously, I have no idea because I made the game and I'm going to be biased, but you know, once I get it in the hands of people who want to play it, they can tell me, and then I'll know if it sucks. But yeah, I'm having way too much fun making this whack-ass project, so I'm definitely going to finish it. I'm having too much fun to stop working on it. I guess in the meantime, like while the video finishes, I'll just play some footage of me beating up the enemies I spent the last 2 months making. Yeah, that's about it. Peace out.